Have you ever felt that quiet tension in your life? The sense that what you're doing doesn't quite line up with who you are? This tension can show up in many different ways. Maybe you thought that when you finally got here, wherever here is for you, that you'd feel different, more satisfied, more at peace. But instead, the place where you're at feels heavier than you imagined. Maybe your leadership role brings more pressure than meaning. Or maybe you just know deep down that what you've built isn't fully what you were built for. That tension, my friend, that's real. But it isn't failure. It's a signal. It's a sign that something is shifting and something is being refined. I'm Steve Muscato, and welcome to Crafted Clarity, where we explore the tension between what we've built and what we're built for. I've spent decades working with leaders and organizations, building brands, shaping strategies, and helping teams find alignment. But like many of you, I've also felt that quiet tension. That success looked good on the outside, but inside, I was wondering if it truly lined up with who I was created to be. That's why this podcast exists. It's a space to slow down, and reflect, and learn how clarity is crafted in our work, in our leadership, and in our lives. So one evening, I was sitting around a fire pit, and I found myself staring into my whiskey glass, just looking at the amber liquid inside of it. I could see the flames from the fire pit dancing around the edges of the glass. The night was quiet, and it got me thinking about the liquid that was in my glass and how it got there. From the generations of distillers who perfected their craft, the intentionality that they put into every single step in making that whiskey. And it struck me because at that moment in my life, I realized that I was being refined too. Letting go of things that no longer fit, questioning what still mattered, and searching for meaning beyond just success. And I realized that the process of making whiskey is a picture of the process that we all go through. Here's what I mean. Whiskey begins with simple ingredients: grain, water, yeast, nothing special. But through fire and distillation, something new emerges. The unwanted elements are removed, and what's left is something purer, something stronger. From there, the whiskey is placed into barrels, which are often charred on the inside with fire. And then comes the hardest part: waiting. For years, and sometimes decades, the whiskey will just sit there in barrels. It breathes in and it breathes out of the wood of the barrel, but it just sits there. Over time, the barrel removes the harshness and adds richness and depth and character to the whiskey. There are no shortcuts. There's no way to rush the process. And when you finally open a truly great bottle of whiskey, what you're tasting is years of craft and patience and refinement. In many ways, our lives are no different. Every job we've worked, every season of growth, every challenge, every success, every failure, well, they're all part of that distillation. Some things are quickly burned away, while others are slowly drawn out, adding depth and character. The waiting can feel long, but over time, those decades of experiences create something more meaningful, more aligned, and more true. That's what the tension is you're feeling right now. That's what it's all about. Change is already happening. In fact, it's always happening. The question is, will you have the clarity to refine it into what you want and into what is significant for you through these changes? Or are you letting the refinements remain random? If the process remains random, you'll keep carrying the stress and the tension that comes from being misaligned with who you were created to be. But if you step into the process with intention, If you are active in the refinement, then every fire, every waiting season, every loss, or every lesson becomes a part of crafting something that is deeply meaningful. And like whiskey, there are no shortcuts. You can't make a great whiskey overnight. You can't fast track meaning. That refinement takes time. But there is power in that waiting. There are lessons in the refining, and there are purpose in the process. The work isn't about getting to the finish line faster. It's about becoming who you were meant to be along the way. In the next episode of Crafted Clarity, we will talk about something distillers call the angel's share. It's the part of every barrel of whiskey that evaporates into the heavens. On the surface, this evaporation looks like loss. But I'll share a personal story about a client that I had to let go of. It was part of my own refining, part of my own distillation process. And how what felt like a lot of loss at the time turned out to shape me in a very surprising way. That's coming up in episode 2. And this is just the beginning. In the weeks ahead, we'll talk about waiting seasons, those times where nothing seems to be moving, but transformation is quietly happening underneath the surface. We'll also look at the role of fire and pressure and how trials refine us in ways that we rarely expect. We'll explore the blend, how our experiences and influences and seasons come together to create something uniquely our own. And we'll have to deal with moments of letting go, where we release what no longer serves us so that what matters most can finally rise to the top. These aren't abstract ideas. They're the very tensions that we all live with. And my hope is that each episode will give you space, perspective, and clarity for your own journey. So wherever you are right now, whether you're celebrating success or wrestling with misalignment, know this: you are already in the process. Change is already happening. The invitation is to lean into it with clarity so that what you're becoming is not just successful, but truly significant. I'd love for you to subscribe, listen in, and be part of the Crafted Clarity journey. Together, we will explore what it means to move beyond success and into significance. This is Crafted Clarity, where clarity isn't found. It's crafted. Thanks for listening to Crafted Clarity. If you're a leader wrestling with the tension between success and significance, or you're trying to align your work with a deeper calling, I'd love to connect with you. If your organization is facing questions about strategy, whether it's alignment, ROI, or building confidence in your team, this is the work we do every day at iBrand. And if you walk this journey yourself, or maybe you're right in the middle of it, I'd love to hear your story and maybe even share it here on the podcast. You can find me at craftedclarity.net.